It's not like how much we get paid. C'est intéressant. Tend to... Did I? No. Hi guys, we're back again! Here we have another episode of Dr. Google, as I'm going to call it, because that's fun, isn't it? This week we're going to do another question and answering your most Googled doctor questions. So this week we're going to do how do doctors, and then we'll see what comes up. How do doctors? Right. C'est intéressant. These ones are so interesting. I like these. These are honestly like, I don't know how I'm going to summarize this into one thing. Right, number one. How do doctors help the community? Whoo, that's a big old queue, isn't it? I like to think that doctors don't just treat diseases in hospital. We do a lot of preventative medicine too, and a lot of public health medicine. We like to preventing disease is so, honestly guys, so much better than trying to treat a disease. Like once you've got the disease, generally, depending on what it is, your body is already like tainted with that like ailment. Yes, obviously there are treatable diseases, infections, etc. I don't know though, like I always think there's probably some kind of residue that like stays around after you've had an infection. So it's not, you know, saying that I've got COVID right now. So yeah, there are a lot of ways that people help the community. So this would be like a GP role in the UK or a family doctor in the US. So smoking prevention, weight loss advice, general like mental health support. I don't know many doctors in the UK that have that much time for like fundraising, but that's another thing that they could potentially do. Oh, another thing is research. So a lot of doctors do research, and generally like that will obviously help the overall population, not just the community surrounding them. But yeah, I think generally if a doctor's out and about, we will tend to, where we see any kind of benefit, like we will help if somebody's like fallen over, or you know, I actually know there was an 80-year-old man on the ward recently who was playing tennis and he collapsed, and there were two doctors on the court next to him playing tennis, and they did CPR, got the AED, and which is the defibrillator, the heart restarter as people call it, the shocking machine, got him back, and then he was fine. Like, so yeah, crazy. I've never had to do CPR out in public yet. So how do doctors get paid? Monthly? What does that question mean? Like, how do we get paid? It's not like how much we get paid. How do we get paid? Well, we just get, it goes into our bank account. We don't get paid in like morphine or whatever, so we get taxed. We get monthly pay slips. I mean, I don't personally. I actually get weekly pay. But I'm just a different kettle of fish, to be honest. We are generally salaried unless you work as a locum, which I am, and then you get paid for what you work. So salaried being like you work, these are your hours and you'll get paid this much this year. So question 3 is, how do doctors syringe ears? This is a very popular thing. I think, like I said, people love getting their ears syringed. It's actually, like I said, it's generally not doctors who syringe ears anymore. It's the nursing staff at the practice. There's a little machine that's like that, like really long, like that. It's like a stick with a hole and like a little tiny like hooky bit at the end, but like only like that amount of hook. And it squirts warmish water out of the pipe, and you stick it in people's ears and get them to like go like that, and you stick it up like that, and then it squirts the water in like a little jet, not too much, but like a little jet, and then it blasts the wax and warms it up and like releases it, and obviously it all just pours out. The reason why it's hooked is obviously so it's not just like blasting straight out at the eardrum, it's like that, so it sort of blasts to the sides to get the earwax off. I think I've seen it being done once, like, you know, when you're in medical school, so, well, you probably don't, but people will remember that when they're in medical school, you get sent on these, like, what I'd like to call maybe like an enrichment experience. So it's a bit more holistic, like you get to see, so you'll sit with the receptionist at the GP surgery to see what they do and stuff like that. So it's not just, you don't just do doctor stuff, learning about what a doctor does, you learn like what do the pharmacists do, or at least at my medical school you did. So that's, I would say, quite common. How do doctors measure pain? There are lots of different scales. I'd say we use like a kind of scale system. So for somebody who's awake, alert, orientated and can kind of converse with me, you say, how bad is your pain on a scale of 0 to 10? 0 being no pain at all, and 10 being the worst pain you can ever imagine, like you're going to die. That kind, like, that's kind of how I explain it. Oh god, the ones that say, they're literally sat here like, I'm a 10. You're like, are you? Like, I've literally just said this is the worst pain you could ever imagine, you're going to die. You don't look in that much pain. Like, I don't know. It's hard to comprehend it. But I'll document whatever they tell me. If they say they're a 10. A lot of people will say I'm an 11. I'll say, come on, I didn't say out of 11, did I? No. I said out of 10, so I'm going to put 10. Though sometimes I'll put in like quotation marks, like says 11. For children, you might use a like smiley face system, so like a smiley face like I have no pain, and then like a sad face like oh I'm in so much pain, and then like a medium face like I'm okay but I'm in a little bit of pain. I don't know what that scale's called. It's like hurts a lot, hurts a little, but you can use that for people with like learning disabilities or people that, you know, struggle to sort of comprehend that kind of number system or whatever. Another way to measure pain that's a bit more objective, to be honest, actually that's really a measure of like alertness. I was going to say the GCS scale, Glasgow Coma Scale, kind of measure their response to pain in that, but you're actually measuring their motor skill, like not skills, motor response. So it's less of a like how do you measure pain, but it is kind of like you are measuring pain in that. So the GCS is made, the GCS is made up of 3 parts: E, eyes, V, no, EM, motor, and V, verbal. It's like 4, 5, 6, and it equates to 15. If I would be a 15 out of 15, and the lowest you can get is a 3 out of 15, and you are pretty much dead if you have a 3, or not in a very good place, let's put it that way. GCS of 8 is really not good. That is when you can't maintain your own airway. So in the M score you have 5. 5 is normal. I used to know this really well. 1 is this is probably so boring. 3 is flexes to pain. Like flexes, but like if you squeeze there, they flex, but they don't necessarily like go get off, which is a 4. No, M5 is if I say stick your tongue out, you'll do it. 4 is localizes to pain, get off me. 3 is flexes to pain. 2 is extends to pain, which is a very abnormal response. Generally you kind of want people to get off. And 1 is does not respond at all. Wow, I actually remembered that. I'm quite impressed. So that was quite a long chat about pain, wasn't it? Another way I guess you can objectively measure pain is by examining somebody. It's not really objective, to be honest, actually, it's more subjective. So let's say you're feeling somebody's tummy, and it depends how deeply you press, for example, like pain, tenderness on deep palpation. Okay, another question about how doctors get paid. I don't know why this is a question. Like, what does this mean? How do doctors get paid? It goes into our bank. Are you asking if we get paid hourly, I guess? So, like, I get paid hourly, and I don't get paid if I don't work. Salaried doctors get paid, I guess you could call it hourly, but they're more like, if you're a GP, you get paid like on a session, so like one morning is a session. Or if you're salaried, so you are on like a contract, then you'll just get paid that amount. If you're sick, you still get paid that amount. How do doctors train sinuses? I don't really know. I don't really know that that's a thing. Let's have a look at that one after. How do doctors test for a UTI? There are two methods. One is, both of them require getting a urine dip. One of them is, you know, get a urine sample and then put a dipstick in it, and you read the colour changes, and it tells you whatever's in the wee will react with this little strip. Like, let's say if there's blood in the wee, the blood will react with that like little square and change colour more or less, depending on how much blood is in the wee. The other way is to send the urine sample off to the laboratory and get them to test it by checking whether any bugs grow from it. So they put it on they put it in this medium that encourages bacterial growth, and they see what gets grown. How do doctors test for cancer? Woo, that's a very broad question. It depends what cancer, really. I guess let's talk generally just about like the different testing methods. Number one is a kind of conservative approach, but it's not really a test. You just take a history and do an exam. That's obviously where you'd start, and if you don't think that any tests are really warranted from the history or the exam that you get, then you might not go forwards, and you might just give some reassurance. But if that's not enough, or you do think or you suspect something more, then you could start with a blood test, which is, you know, fairly inexpensive. You might also like test for somebody's wee, or, you know, if there's blood in somebody's wee but they haven't got a UTI, then that's a bit suspect. Or you might just test a bodily fluid. So you might get their sputum and send that off to the lab and get that tested for blood or whatever. Or their poo, you can also test for blood in that. So basically cancer is a bit naughty in many ways, but one of the ways is that it has something called angiogenesis. I haven't heard that word for so long or used it. It basically, like, the cancer gives off new blood vessels, and those blood vessels are a bit crap, so they just leak blood. So that's why having blood in bodily fluids can be a sign for cancer. Can, not is. There are tumour markers that you can test for certain cancers, such as bowel cancer, ovarian cancer. And then there are like hormone markers as well that you can test for, or mutations that are in the blood. And then probably the second least, so we like to go from like less invasive to more invasive. Like, we like to start at the less invasive stuff, has less risks and is like generally nicer for the patient. And so we then move on to imaging. So chest x-rays can show up cancers if they have a lung cancer, for example, or you might do an ultrasound of their tummy, or you might move on to more of like a cross-sectional imaging, like CT scanner, which is the tube that you go through, or MRI scanner, but that's a bit more rare. And then the final way is you would do a histology sample. So you can either do that via biopsy, so take out a little section of it, or you can, depending on how suspicious it is or how easy it is to get to, you take a biopsy and send that to the lab for them to look under a microscope, or you take the whole mass out and chop it up, and one of the histologists looks at it under the microscope. It looks really fun, but like I wouldn't say that I would be able to tell you if it's cancer or not. Oh, what were we going to look up? We were going to go, how do doctors drain sinuses? I have never heard of anybody putting a balloon up somebody's nose and then dragging out stuff. Is that an American thing? I don't know, maybe that's something I've just never seen. To be honest, doctors generally, we just like to be like as least invasive as possible. The less is more. Anyway, I'm getting a bit cold. I hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.